Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Cam Rogers Show on this Monday, July 23rd, 2018. It is National Gorgeous Grandma Day. So shout out to you, Grandma, living in the villages down there in Florida. Keep it real with the folks 55 and older. We thank you for tuning into the program. I've got you covered for the next hour. Here is the rundown, the latest NBA news and rumors. Something came through the wires about Carmelo Anthony just moments ago. I will get to that in a matter of seconds. Cover the Lakers as well as the latest NFL news and rumors. The 45th President of the United States has weighed in on the national anthem debate. I'll break it down later. Plus, why Tiger Woods will win a major championship at some point. Could happen at the PGA in a couple of weeks. I'll talk about it later in the show. But let's talk about the Rockets and Carmelo Anthony. The context is Daryl Morey, the general manager of the Houston Rockets, recently responded to a fan's question about Anthony by saying that the Rockets are, quote, in the mix. And what just came through the wires is Marc Stein saying that Melo is planning on signing with the Houston Rockets upon clearing waivers. All right, this is no surprise at all. There's been no shortage of Melo to Houston rumors this offseason. Yahoo Sports' Jordan Schultz reported earlier this month that Chris Paul was pushing for the team to sign Carmelo. James Harden recently went on the record just last week via Matt Young of the Houston Chronicle saying that Anthony would be, quote, a great acquisition. And then there was the report from NBA.com that Melo has been telling his friends he's going to the Houston Rockets. So now that Melo has been traded to the Hawks, he really doesn't have much say in terms of his next team until he gets waived, of course, which is the expectation for the Atlanta Hawks. So if Melo goes to Houston, I think it would be an interesting little reunion, if you will, for him and Mike D'Antoni. Of course, their relationship has been rocky at best, but D'Antoni is reportedly willing to give Melo another shot. The Rockets have been the favorites all along. You take a look at the latest Vegas odds here to land Carmelo Anthony. The Rockets there at minus 200. There was some buzz about maybe the Lakers grabbing Melo. They were at plus 500. Tied with the Miami Heat. They were at the center of some Melo rumors as well. Then you got the Raptors at plus 800 and the Celtics at plus 950. So get used to this look, ladies and gentlemen. There he is, Carmelo Anthony in a Rockets jersey. So the Rockets, known for their three-point shooting. Melo was more of a catch-and-shooter last year for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It makes you wonder if Melo will continue to play in that role, a role that he was not a big fan of utilizing last year with the OKC Thunder. So keep that in mind. I mean, does Melo still do that typical role that he had with the Thunder and the catch-and-shoot style, not being on the ball or anything like that? And we're not expecting Melo to be purely on the ball the rest of his career. That's just not the reality of the situation for him. Let me know about this fit with Melo in Houston. Type 1 for it's a good fit. Type 2 for you're not a fan of it in the comments section. I'm on YouTube Live as well as Facebook Live. Want to hear from you guys, but all indications are, according to Marc Stein of the New York Times, Carmelo Anthony is headed to the Houston Rockets. All right, so there you go. How about DeMar DeRozan? What's the latest with him? Well, he recently thanked Toronto for his time there in Canada. Now, of course, a member of the San Antonio Spurs. He took to social media to thank the Raptors faithful following his trade. And here's DeRozan on his time in Toronto. Quote, I am so grateful for the love and passion that you've given me over the past 9 years. All I ever wanted to do was duplicate it 10 times over just to show my appreciation. Thank you, Toronto. Thank you, Canada. Hashtag Comp10. Hashtag prove 'em. So DeRozan spent the first 9 seasons of his career with the Raptors after getting selected out of USC with the number 9 overall selection in that 2009 NBA draft. All-star 4 of the past 5 seasons. So he's going to join forces with 6-time All-Star big man LaMarcus Aldridge in hopes of leading the Spurs to a 22nd consecutive playoff appearance. Fair to say the breakup seemed a little rough at first if you looked at DeRozan's Instagram stories shortly after the Kawhi Leonard news broke. Obviously, circumstances can change in the vein that, well, DeRozan was at one point promised he wasn't going to get traded, And then obviously a 180 happened. DeRozan ended up getting traded to San Antonio. DeRozan, of course, felt like he was stabbed in the back in a sense, and there was this whole apology that reportedly went on as well. And there has been a dialogue between DeRozan and the Raptors leadership in regards to that. Whether or not it is fully patched up really remains to be seen. Maybe we'll hear more about that in regards to the relationship between the Raptors and DeRozan. But DeRozan's headed to San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard is headed to Toronto. So DeRozan thanking the fans out there with the Raptors. All right, next up on the list, we got Montrezl Harrell signing with the LA Clippers. It's a 2-year, $12 million deal to return with LA. The Clippers acquired Harrell from the Houston Rockets, you may recall, as part of that trade that sent Chris Paul to Houston last offseason. Solid role player off the bench for LA last year, averaged 11 points, 4 rebounds, just a shade under a block per game in 76 appearances for Harrell. And with no DeAndre Jordan in town anymore, obviously bringing Harrell back and cementing him in that lineup, very critical from a depth perspective there for the Clippers. So good move there. This NBA weekend, by the way, a lot of small but important role signings, if you will. So you'll kind of get that theme as we go throughout these news and rumors. But in regards to Dwyane Wade, is he going to return to basketball? Very much up in the air. As of now, Wade has been focusing on promoting his new shoe, the Way of Wade 7. But one Chinese basketball team, the Tiger Cats, is ready to offer a, quote, monster contract to Wade. Now, Wade told the Associated Press his main focus right now is to promote his shoe and focus on aspects related to post-basketball life. So we're talking about from a business perspective here for Dwyane. Wade spent last season with the Cavs and the Miami Heat, of course. Productive scorer off the bench for the two teams with 11.4 points on average, 3.4 assists there in 67 games for D. Wade. Sounds like he's kind of channeling a little bit of LeBron here. LeBron has been kind of giving us hints about, you know, focusing on that post-basketball life there with maybe a sports comedy kind of TV show. There's some rumors about that in LeBron James. So Dwyane Wade kind of doing his own thing, promoting his brand, if you will, with his new shoe, and really not thinking about basketball for the foreseeable future. So Dwyane Wade, as we stand right now, more of a businessman. So keep that in mind. But China, very interested in D. Wade. You guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show presented by AutoList. If you're looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites, go to Autolist.com to browse the largest source of inventory on the web or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. Be sure to hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. We thank you for tuning in to the program. We have a super chat coming through from Jasper. What do we got? Mr. Rogers, greet me please because it's my B-Day, please. Jasper, happy birthday to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning into the program. We love you. We love the fans. So keep watching along. A lot of good content coming your way. Let me know what you're doing for your birthday. Hit me up on Twitter. I want to know your plans. I just celebrated a birthday back on July 9th. Just turned, wait for it, 24. It's my Jack Bauer year. Let me know if you get that reference. All right, next up on the list, Jahlil Okafor drawing some interest in China as well. So a little bit of a Chinese basketball theme here with D. Wade and Okafor. So the former Philadelphia 76ers center is generating interest not just from one team, but reportedly several teams in China. So last season, fair to say, was a bit odd for Okafor. He struggled to find a consistent place in the Philly rotation once he returned to full strength, and he made just 2 appearances for the team during the early stages of last season before, of course, being traded to those Brooklyn Nets. His fortunes didn't get much better when he went to Brooklyn. He averaged 6.4 points, 2.9 rebounds in 12.6 minutes across 26 contests for the Nets there. So not the greatest stock right now for Jahlil Okafor, so maybe he decides to play in China instead. But there was the report recently that, well, 4 teams are interested in Okafor, 4 teams he worked out for in, I think it was like the last week and a half. So maybe he finds a squad in the NBA, but If not, China is always an option for him. All right, let's go to Alex Len. He recently signed with the Atlanta Hawks. It's a 2-year, $8.5 million deal with Atlanta. Len, of course, the former Terp, my alma mater, averaged 8.5 points, 7.5 rebounds per game for the Suns last season, taken 5th overall by Phoenix in the 2013 draft, averaged 7.2 points and 6.5 rebounds to this point in his career. Now, Len's contract will be finalized once the Carmelo Anthony trade is fully completed, fully dealt with, and then eventually Melo will, of course, move on and go to waivers and join the Houston Rockets. Now, Len has been pretty vocal about the Suns not using him properly. And despite the change and inconsistencies within that franchise, Alex Len could never rise to the top of the depth chart. So I don't know if it's the Suns' problem that Alex Len really didn't emerge for them, or if it's Alex Len's problem that he did not emerge for the Phoenix Suns. Now, Len will compete with the likes of John Collins and Omari Spellman and Dodman as well for minutes on that front line there. Solid finisher around the rim, good player. Like 73% of his scores, though, do come within a very short distance of that hoop. So he's not a guy that's going to space the floor for you guys by any means necessary. But Alex Len, solid player, should be good on that depth chart. And the Atlanta Hawks have something going on right now. There's no doubt about that, all right? So they got something happening with that team. I like the way the Kings are headed. I like the way that the many teams out there, like the Clippers, are headed. The draft was a really interesting storyline for me because a lot of the bottom feeder teams really got better. So there could be a lot of parity in the NBA coming up. All right, we got another question via Super Chat. How do you think the Pistons will do this season? This coming from Jermaine. Jermaine, thanks so much for tuning into the program. In terms of the Pistons, I think they have a low-key shot at being a surprising team across the NBA this year. I like the way that their depth is shaping up. And, you know, I mentioned the theme for the NBA this season is parity, Jermaine. So that tells me that some teams are just going to come out of nowhere and emerge, and I think the Detroit Pistons actually fall in line with that category. So there should be reason for optimism as we go throughout the coming months here and we enter training camp for those Detroit Pistons. So keep that head up. I think they could be an interesting team to watch out for. Appreciate that comment. Keep using that Super Chat if you want to be featured on the Cam Rogers Show. Be sure to hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99 for all your questions, concerns, and comments. All right, next up, Jimmy Butler to go to the Knicks in 2019. This is interesting. So on a recent Bulls Talk podcast, yes, Bulls, NBA analysts made some interesting remarks. So one analyst from NBC Sports Chicago spoke of players potentially joining forces prior to the 2019-2020 campaign. In particular, this analyst mentioned Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving teaming up. Now, the Knicks are currently 8th in, quote, practical cap space, and will have a good amount in 2019. The books will almost entirely be cleared in 2020. And the Brooklyn Nets, meanwhile, also have the financials to make a couple big-time splashes next offseason. Jimmy Butler, of course, from New Jersey, so you would think that the Nets and the Knicks both have a little bit of a leg up in the hometown cooking department. And I think Butler and Kyrie in New York would be quite the story. You know, they got to be texting each other about it. At least a little bit, just maybe casually, like, hey, what are you thinking for next year? And you also have 3 good core players to build around. You got Frank Ntilikina, you got Kevin Knox, whom they just drafted, and Kristaps. Those are 3 good, solid core players. If you have Jimmy Butler on that team, and heck, Kyrie Irving too, watch out for the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference. And this isn't just me pulling this out of my butt and saying that Jimmy Butler and Kyrie are going to team up. Earlier this month, the Chicago Sun-Times reported that Butler and Kyrie are discussing playing with each other at some point. So there is evidence to believe that there is some sort of dialogue going on between Kyrie and Jimmy Butler. And of course, last NBA offseason was really exciting with LeBron James and I guess the offseason's still going on, but I mean the crux of the offseason with LeBron and Kyrie and all the storylines there was very exciting. Next offseason is going to be really exciting too, because you have the likes of Klay Thompson and Jimmy Butler and all these big-time names, Kyrie Irving, testing the open waters perhaps. So if you're the T-Wolves right now and you're worried that Jimmy Butler is leaving next season, walks into free agency and joins the New York Knicks, you might want to orchestrate a trade before the deadline and get that done. It kind of the logic with Kawhi Leonard, right? The Spurs knew that Kawhi Leonard was leaving and heading into free agency in 2019. So why not orchestrate a trade, get some sort of compensation, and in this case, really good compensation with a first-round pick and DeMar DeRozan, of course, and avoid just losing Kawhi for nothing. So maybe that's what the Minnesota Timberwolves should kind of channel here, is trade away Jimmy Butler and get ready for maybe the future. I don't know. I mean, apparently Butler and Karl Anthony Towns aren't getting along very well. I think the Wolves are borderline playoff contenders, definitely borderline NBA title contenders as we stand right now. Chemistry, big-time story for them. All right, how about the Clippers to make a run at Kawhi Leonard, speaking of Kawhi, and speaking of 2019. So there's been increasing buzz that the Clippers will try their very hardest to acquire or sign Kawhi Leonard. Now, I'm sure Jerry West is going to make a serious pitch with Leonard to convince him to join the Clippers. Part of that pitch will likely be that Kawhi can be the guy with the Clippers. Whereas, let's face it, he would play second fiddle to LeBron James if he were to join the LA Lakers. So I feel that is somewhat attractive for Kawhi Leonard. You can be in LA, which is your main wish, right, for next offseason, and you can also be the leader of that team, the guy on that team, the face of that team, which of course would not be the scenario if he were to join the LA Lakers. And we've also heard some rumors that Kawhi didn't like the idea of playing in LeBron James' shadow. I don't know how much credence that actually has, but it's fodder for you guys to kind of think about here. Meanwhile, if Kawhi doesn't want the drama, that will be LeBron James, LeVar Ball, Lonzo Ball, Big Baller Brand, the Ball family in general, then perhaps the Clippers make more sense than what people really realize. And Kawhi, like I said, can be the unquestioned, air quote, quiet leader of the Clippers, which obviously wouldn't be the case with the Lakers. Noise is a lot more scarce with the Clippers compared to the LA Lakers. The Lakers are the Lakers. The Clippers are the Clippers. It's just the reality of the situation. And if Kawhi wants to go somewhere quieter, the LA Clippers make a lot of sense. And if Kawhi wants to stay away from LeBron James' shadow, the LA Clippers make a lot of sense. So do I think Kawhi will give LAC a serious look? Yes. I still feel the Lakers are the favorites to land Kawhi in 2019, and I still feel that they will at some point. While at the same time, I won't rule out Kawhi Leonard falling in love with the Toronto Raptors. Although I find it hard to believe, I think they're going to try their very hardest, the Raptors leadership will, to have some sort of recruiting pitch going. And if it is successful, maybe Kawhi just says, you know what, I'll stay in Toronto and I'll sign a long-term deal. But I think that is more of a reach compared to going to the Clippers or going to the Lakers there. So where will Kawhi Leonard play next season? Let me know in comments. I want to hear from you guys here on the Cam Rogers Show.